Imagine a place where every scar, every mark of time is celebrated. A world where imperfections are not just accepted, but admired. This is Wabi-Sabi, the ancient Japanese philosophy that teaches us to love what is real and imperfect. How many times have you caught yourself chasing perfection? Maybe in your home, at work, or even within yourself. The exhaustion of trying to align everything perfectly can be overwhelming. But what if there were another way to live? A way to see beauty precisely in things that aren't perfect? Wabi-Sabi, the Japanese philosophy that teaches you to love imperfections. Have you ever felt like everything around you needs to be flawless? The house arranged in a way that looks like a magazine catalogue. The work perfectly calculated, planned down to the smallest detail. The body, skin, appearance, without a single flaw. Every day, we are bombarded with the idea that normal is not enough, that we need to be more organized, more productive, more aesthetically pleasing, as if there were an invisible ruler measuring every choice we make. But does that make sense? Does this endless pursuit of perfection really make us happier? There is a Japanese philosophy that counters this obsession. A simple concept, but profoundly transformative. A different way of looking at the world, at objects, and above all, at ourselves. It's called Wabi-Sabi. And today, you're going to understand how this idea can free you from many unrealistic expectations and help you see beauty in what is natural, simple, and imperfect. Let's talk about a lighter way to deal with life, a way that can change how you view your home, your routine, your relationships, and even yourself. Because maybe true beauty isn't where we were taught to look. What is Wabi-Sabi? Wabi-Sabi isn't a concept that can be explained with a rigid definition. It's not a technique, a theory, or a set of rules you need to follow. It's more like a perception, a different way of looking at the things around you. Think of your favorite cup. It already has some marks from use, maybe even a small crack, but that only makes you love it more. Or that piece of clothing that's been washed so many times it's become softer. Or an old piece of furniture that carries stories in every scratch. Wabi-Sabi is this worldview that values what is imperfect, transient, and incomplete. It teaches that nothing needs to be flawless to have value. Quite the opposite, in fact. A handmade ceramic vase with small irregularities and asymmetries is more special than one mass-produced. A garden where leaves fall naturally, without the worry of always appearing pruned and symmetrical, is more beautiful than one that strives to be eternally controlled. Western culture tends to seek perfection relentlessly. Shiny surfaces, exact cuts, straight lines, everything looking new all the time. But Wabi-Sabi reminds us that real beauty lies in naturalness, in the wear of time, in what has a true, living presence. And this doesn't only apply to objects, but to you as well. Wabi-Sabi is a philosophy that originated in Japan and has deep roots in Japanese culture and aesthetics. It is influenced by Zen Buddhism, which values simplicity, nature, and the acceptance of life's cycles. The term wabi originally referred to rustic simplicity, quietness, and connection with nature. Sabi denoted the beauty that comes with age, the patina of old things, and the wisdom that comes with time. Together, Wabi-Sabi forms a worldview that celebrates the beauty found in imperfection and transience. Imagine a Japanese garden. It's not perfectly symmetrical, nor does it follow a rigid pattern. The stones are placed in an apparently random way. The plants grow naturally, and the fallen leaves aren't immediately swept away. This garden doesn't strive for perfection, but instead seeks harmony with nature. It accepts and celebrates the natural flow of things. Wabi-Sabi invites us to do the same in our lives. It teaches us to find beauty in simple and modest things. A ceramic vase with a small crack isn't less valuable because of that imperfection. In fact, it's that imperfection that makes it unique and special. A wooden table with marks from use tells a story, has a soul, and that's something no brand new piece can replicate. This philosophy also challenges us to accept our own imperfections. Instead of trying to hide our flaws, Wabi-Sabi encourages us to embrace them. The wrinkles on our faces, the scars on our bodies, the mistakes and failures we've made along the way, all of this is part of who we are. And all of this has its own beauty. Wabi-Sabi isn't an excuse for disorder or neglect. It's not about accepting mediocrity or sloppiness. It's about finding balance. It's about understanding that life is a continuous process of growth and change. It's about valuing the journey with all its twists and unexpected turns. When you begin to see the world through the lens of Wabi-Sabi, something changes within you. You start to notice the beauty in small things, the sound of rain tapping on the window, the smell of an old book, the soft touch of worn fabric. You begin to appreciate moments of quiet and reflection, finding peace and simplicity. And that, in itself, is an art. The art of living authentically. The art of accepting what is, rather than wishing for what could be. The art of finding beauty in the imperfect, the transient, and the incomplete. Why is this so liberating? We spend our lives trying to adjust everything around us. From a young age, we're taught that we only deserve recognition if we do things as perfectly as possible. If our home is immaculate, if our body meets certain standards, if our routine is maximally productive. As if there were only value in what is intact, in what never fails. But that's exhausting. When did life turn into this race to keep everything perfectly aligned? When did we start treating any wear, any imperfection, any pause as a problem that needs to be fixed? The days go by, and we accumulate this invisible pressure. Everything has to be beautiful, organized, new. But what if, instead of fighting against the marks of time, we started to see them as part of our own story? That's what Wabi-Sabi teaches us. This simple, yet transformative philosophy reminds us of something we constantly forget. Real beauty isn't in what's perfect, but in what's authentic. Think about the objects that mean the most to you. Are they the newest, the most expensive? Or are they perhaps the ones that carry memories, that have gone through different phases of your life, that have withstood time and gained value precisely because of that? The old family table that's been the stage for so many conversations. The worn-out cup that's still your favorite because it's been with you for years. That scribbled notebook that holds scattered thoughts and is special precisely for that reason. We're so conditioned to discard everything as soon as it shows signs of age that we forget to see the value in what remains. And this outlook shouldn't be limited to just things. It should apply to us as well. Stop and think. How many times have you felt inadequate simply because you didn't fit a standard? Your skin has changed. Your body has changed. Your way of thinking has changed. And that means you're alive. But instead of viewing that as growth, we insist on calling it a flaw. Wabi-Sabi teaches us to let go of that burden. It teaches that there's a natural rhythm to everything, that life doesn't need to be forcibly controlled, that the attempt to hold every detail to an artificial ideal only leads to frustration. Instead of trying to fix something that was never truly broken, why not just accept it? Not in the sense of giving up, but in the sense of embracing what is real. Look around you. The world is constantly changing. The leaves dry up and fall. The sun rises and sets. Objects age, and so do people. That's part of life, and there's nothing wrong with it. So tell me, what's the point of fighting against something that is natural? This is the liberation of Wabi-Sabi, realizing that life has always had beauty, but we were too busy trying to fix it to see it. Wabi-Sabi doesn't require you to go out and change everything. On the contrary, it invites you to see beauty in what already exists. In your home, instead of thinking you need to replace the furniture, renovate everything, or live in a perfectly decorated space, try looking at the details with new eyes. The table with signs of use isn't worn out, it's full of stories. The sofa that no longer looks brand new is still the place where you feel comfortable. Your dishes might not all match, but each piece has meaning. It's not about leaving everything messy or neglected. It's about understanding that the new isn't always better. Your home can already be beautiful without needing to follow an unreachable standard of perfection. In your routine, we tend to think we need to be incredibly productive every single day, but some days simply don't flow. There are moments when the mind asks for a pause. Wabi-Sabi teaches us that everything has a natural rhythm, and fighting against it only leads to more frustration. Know that it's okay if you can't give 100% all the time. A slower day, a coffee taken without rush, a moment of rest without guilt. These too are part of what it means to live well. In the way you see yourself, you don't have to constantly fit into a standard to be beautiful. Your skin has marks because you've lived. Your body has changed because time has passed. There is a unique beauty in every detail that makes you who you are. Wabi-Sabi isn't just about objects and environments. It's about acceptance, about learning to stop fighting against what is natural. The Japanese minimalism and Wabi-Sabi, the perfect combination. If you already feel aligned with minimalism, you've probably noticed how much this philosophy resonates with Wabi-Sabi. But there is a big difference between Western minimalism and Japanese minimalism. In the West, minimalism is often translated as having fewer things. White spaces, modern furniture, almost empty rooms. The idea of eliminating everything unnecessary. But what if true minimalism wasn't about reducing everything to the bare minimum, but rather about keeping only what has meaning? This is where Wabi-Sabi comes in. It doesn't just seek order and simplicity, it seeks the essence of things. A minimalist space doesn't have to be cold and sterile. On the contrary, it can be welcoming. It can hold memories. It can tell stories. There are objects in your home that are beautiful, but don't say anything about who you are. Pieces that were bought simply because they seem to match the space but don't stir any emotion in you. Japanese minimalism, guided by Wabi-Sabi, teaches us that a space should reflect our essence, not just follow an empty aesthetic. You don't need to have only what's strictly necessary. You simply need to learn to value what makes sense to you. One of the most beautiful ideas of Wabi-Sabi when applied to Japanese minimalism is the appreciation of the marks of time. In Western culture, there is an obsession with keeping everything looking new, furniture always spotless with no scratches, or where walls always shiny without signs of use. Objects replace the moment they show the slightest sign of aging. Japanese minimalism teaches us to appreciate the passage of time. Woods that darken and develop texture with the years. Fabrics that become softer the more they're used. Ceramics that carry subtle marks from their handcrafted process. None of this needs to be seen as imperfect. On the contrary, it's exactly there that beauty lies. This applies to objects, but also to you, your face, your body, your story. Everything carries the signs of time. And instead of fighting against this, why not learn to see the value in each transformation? Silence and space are just as important as objects. A minimalist environment doesn't need to be filled with things to have personality. In Japan, the composition of spaces follows a philosophy called ma, which values the relationship between objects and the empty space around them. This means that a space doesn't become special because of the number of things it contains, but because of the harmony between each element. A vase on a table might seem simple, but when placed in the right spot, with enough space around it to be noticed, it becomes a point of calm and contemplation. In your daily life, this translates into learning to open up space, not to have less, out of obligation, but so that what truly matters can stand out. When you begin to incorporate these principles into your everyday life, something shifts. The desire for more starts to lose its power. The constant comparison to unattainable standards of perfection decreases. The anxiety of keeping everything spotless fades away. You realize you don't need to live surrounded by new things to find beauty. More than that, you begin to see that true peace doesn't lie in perfection, but in the sincere acceptance of what is real. If there's one thing that Wabi-Sabi and Japanese minimalism teach us, It's that life doesn't have to be a constant effort to reach an unattainable standard. At every moment, we're pushed by this invisible pressure that everything must be perfect, new, flawless, that we need to speed up, produce, fix, improve, as if the value of things and people is always in what can still be adjusted. The world doesn't need to be remodeled all the time to be beautiful. Your home doesn't need to be perfectly organized to be welcoming. You don't need to be an edited version of yourself to be worthy of admiration. More calm, fewer impossible demands, more beauty in naturalness. Now I want to hear from you. Does this perspective make sense? If yes, comment below. I choose to find beauty in simplicity. I want to see how many people are willing to look at life from this new perspective. And if this video opened your mind in some way, share it with someone you think needs to hear this today. Sometimes an idea like this comes at just the right time.